Star Wars 7x7 episode 2260. In our earlier conversations about Chaos Rising, we did not talk about a sort of spoilery bit of information which happens to be related to when the novel takes place. And I've actually seen reports suggesting that it's untethered in that regard. Well, it's not. It's actually very tightly tethered to the timeline and to one particular previous novel. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So, Star Wars, Thrawn Ascendency, Book 1, Chaos Rising, close paren. Chaos Rising for ease of discussion, right? So we are approaching spoiler territory, and I'm not going to get too spoilery about the whole thing, but we are going to talk about one particular aspect of this novel that ties into a previous novel, and that right there is your spoiler warning. So if you don't want to go any further, then save this for a later date, but if you're okay with me diving in, let's go. So, you may recall me talking about the novel Thrawn Alliances in my non-spoiler review. One of the things that I talked about in that regard was how the two novels were sort of similar in the way that they are presented. So Thrawn Alliances has two storylines, a Clone Wars era storyline and a Age of Empire, if you will, storyline just before the Battle of Yavin, or a year or so before maybe. Anyway, we have a similar situation with Chaos Rising, where there is a memory section that takes place years before, and then there's the chapter section, which is the present story. Well, it turns out that the chapter story actually takes place in concert with the Clone Wars era story of Thrawn Alliances. Now, just to give you the quick refresher, in that story, there is a spy, a scout for the Republic, who is working for Padme Amidala named Duja, who disappears, and then Padme has to go on the hunt for her, and then she disappears, and then Anakin Skywalker shows up looking for her. Well, we actually get to see Duja, and we get to see the Nubian ship piloted by Padme, but we don't actually see Padme because Thrawn had no interaction with her apparently, but he did actually have an interaction with Duja. And we see from Thrawn's perspective, again, and with a little bit more information, some of the interactions that he has with Anakin Skywalker from Thrawn Alliances. But we only get a little bit of it. What we do get as a result of it, though, is that we get a little more perspective about what Thrawn ended up gaining and the purpose to which he put it as a result of his encounter with Anakin Skywalker and working with him to find Padme, not just dealing with Batu, but also this other planet, Mokjiv. I think that's how we pronounce it. And in that novel, in that story, one of the things that he discovers is that the Republic has shield technology that is far beyond what the Chiss Ascendency has. So the Chiss Ascendency has electrostatic barriers. That's how they refer to the shield systems that they have for their warships. But the actual shield technology developed by the Republic and used by them and by the Separatists as well is far beyond anything. And so he manages to get a shield generator, and that's, one of the prizes that comes from the work that he does in Thrawn Alliances. Well, now you get to have the other shoe drop in Thrawn Chaos Rising. Just Chaos Rising. I'm not going to go through the whole title. And you get to see what he actually does with this shield technology. And it turns out to be a lot lower key comparatively speaking. So, there are all these machinations with the Nicardoon, which are the main opponent of the novel in Chaos Rising, but he doesn't actually use it as a means of overwhelming the entire Nicardoon, and I'll stop myself there. I'll draw the line so that way we don't cross over that and don't tell you too much about what happens in the novel, at least save some of the juicy details, because with Thrawn, of course, it's always a plan, and it's always this, clockwork-like bit of precision with all these little, cogs and wheels and other bits and bobs that all have to come together to work very precisely, and it's always magic when it does. And it does bring me around to a criticism I've seen of the novel, which is that it doesn't necessarily have a plot. And on the one hand, I can kind of see how people might think that potentially, but maybe it just gets lost in the fact that the memories and the current events are shuffled together, and so it's a little bit hard to see. But I mean, you start out with a threat that happens on the edge of the Ascendancy, and Thrawn has to go investigate, and his investigation is by turns hampered and also informed by previous experiences he's had that are detailed in the memories. And ultimately there is like a plot line that happens, a story that happens, and there is a resolution of sorts, but there's also a stinger toward the end that makes you realize, oh yeah, there's more than meets the eye naturally, which, is pretty much how these things go, especially when it's being plotted out as a trilogy. But as I said in the non-spoiler review, it is still essentially two novellas that have been shuffled together to create one novel, and so as a result, maybe it seems like the memories section of the whole book, maybe that takes the edge off the whole situation as a result. I mean, it's still enjoyable, but yeah, it's definitely not the full novel experience that, I might have expected walking into it. There is one fun aspect of the explorations that Thrawn has that lead him to his interactions that cross over with Thrawn alliances, and I will share that particular detail with you in just a second. Do just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Audible who allowed me to give you a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial by signing up at sw7x7.com/audible. That's sw7x7.com/audible for your free trial and your free download. And that also helps support the show and keep me delivering it to you on a daily basis. So thank you very much for supporting me in Star Wars 7x7. One more time, sw7x7.com/audible. And now that fun little thing that, as it's mentioned in the novel, you don't necessarily know to what they're referring, but then it's kind of fun. As Thrawn is investigating and trying to find out more about what the Nickar are doing, he explores an area that is referred to as lesser space. And you're like, lesser space? Okay, what is this? Somewhere out in the chaos that's like maybe not as populated or not as advanced or anything like that. Well, it turns out lesser space is how the Chiss are referring to the galaxy far, far away. So as he gets out toward Batuu and dealing with these other planets that are in the known galaxy, that is what the Chiss refer to as lesser space. And they are fully aware of the war that's been going on with the Republic and the Separatists. And yeah, so that's kind of fascinating and fun, and also a very good indicator of how the Chiss view everybody in the main galaxy. It does make you wonder if ultimately they will decide to take on a lesser space or move out, but I don't know if they have the manpower and the wherewithal to be able to pull off something like that. A discussion for another time, perhaps. But that is where we're going to leave things for this episode of the show. That is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.